For Jurassic World, Legacy Effects created a number of practical effects. Some were created to dovetail with the digital work of ILM, and some of them were standalone pieces. One of our favorites that we did, which went straight from the shop to the screen, was the dying Apatosaurus. The idea was to build the head and the neck that would be animatronic and could react with the two actors, and then ILM would extend it. We wanted to make you feel for this character, and so that became our challenge. We start out with a 3D design. This is milled out of foam. That milled piece then is cleaned up by sculptors, and I mean clean up, you get all of the edges and rough texture that comes from the milling, and detail it up.
You're kind of taking it a little bit further than what's in the design. To me, the best design is always a vague design. It's up to artistic interpretation. Like any kind of reptile, I think about where does it move the most? Is that going to be wrinklier skin, or is it going to be tougher skin?
Steven Spielberg, conferred with Colin. It needs to be bigger.
The order came down that we wanted to go for a rescale. We get 3D scanning involved, we scan what the artist traditionally sculpted, and then at that point, once it's in the computer, we can then go to any scale that's needed. So instead of starting over, we were able to save a lot of man-hours.
Once that's completed, it goes to the mold department.
You want to talk to the artists, you want to talk to mechanics, and then start breaking it down, which means how am I going to split this sculpture up into workable mold pieces that we can use to create the creature. We mold the sculpture by laminating multiple layers of fiberglass cloth with an epoxy resin. Once the mold is done, we have two halves, and now we have to core it. So we take clay and we lay that clay into the mold. We fiberglass inside of that clay. And what that does is create a void in between those two pieces of how thick the skin will be in those various areas.
It's made with old-fashioned foam rubber, which has been around since The Wizard of Oz. Different formulas, but it just works well.
Basically, you're whipping air into the latex. The more air that we put into the foam latex, the softer it is, and this was an animatronic skin, so we needed super soft foam in the face. And for the neck, we needed something a little bit more durable. We inject from the bottom, and the foam's gonna rise. We put bleeder holes every couple of feet so we can see where we're at as far as material goes. Let that gel, move it to the big oven, cook it for 12 hours overnight, and the next morning we have a dinosaur.
While all of the artistic work is being done, inside the team are building the mechanics.
In this particular build, we actually went back to the early days when we did the first Jurassic Park. We went with a cable system instead of hydraulics, and had to counterweight it with springs. Inside, we used a series of what we call reverse parallelograms, and each stage would move up or side to side. And over the course of that long neck, it allowed for a gradual move.
We recreated the core of the neck sculpture in foam, cleaned out the center of it so that the mechanics could be within that. Then we covered that portion in spandex so that it would slide on the foam latex skin.
With the head, as all creatures we build, we try to get as close as we can with our limitations of how many servos and motors we can fit inside of it.
And I've asked for this thing to do the world, all kinds of muscles moving.
Just throw in everything that we have.
You're getting blinks and eye movement. It can snort and it actually blows air.
We had a series of 3 bladders going through the throat to replicate kind of a swallowing mechanism. Subtle, but it's effective.
Everything that you can possibly weave into this creature to give it that emotional feeling and make it act, to make it perform, to become a character, not just an animatronic thing. To really breathe life into it.
I think they wanted a human quality in the eye so you could associate with it easier. And so I tried to give as much depth to it as I could, one little stridation at a time. I mean, it's big, it's a 3-inch diameter eyeball. And so when camera's tight on it, I wanted to be able to see as much depth and detail as you could.
When we paint foam latex, we paint with a rubber cement-based paint. So you can get some really realistic effects by all these different layers going on top of each other.
We used a lot of rhinoceros and elephant reference because it was in that zone. It's a big, fleshy animal with wrinkles that are similar.
We start mapping in big areas using automotive spray guns. Once we get into the fine detail work, we go to airbrushes, and those go away eventually, and it's into brushes, and then those get into fine brushes, and then it's little dots and little kind of cracks.
The artists bounce and reflect off each other as the paint job happens. It keeps the talent pool alive and active.
That team, myself and the artists and the mechanics, come together and start rehearsing and practicing. and figuring out what would this thing be doing.
Then it can just sit there.
We always use the analogy, it's like a band playing. Everybody's playing a different instrument, but it all sounds like one piece of music. That's essentially what we have to do as puppeteers. You have to have some thread that goes through everybody that keeps it all together.
We shot a rehearsal, which we shared with the producers and the director. And I think it became reassuring to them how emotional the scene could be.
We had to be able to react to any kind of emotion or any kind of thing the director asked for. We had 2 actors that were holding it.
It was really nice to see they were excited to touch, see, feel.
Because, I mean, it would actually move their arms, move their bodies.
There's some chemistry that happens, between the actors in the piece. It just starts to naturally gel. I have to say, Colin Trevorrow, our director, really fought to have animatronic dinosaurs be part of this film. It's a warm feeling I have for these movies. We have a long history with them. From the Stan Winston studio. And then we're carrying on all of that here at Legacy, and we have a fantastic team of artists, and to be involved again in the Jurassic movie is quite an honor.
And we are back for our final segment of the Jurassic Party reunion. We're going to be talking about Jurassic World, the biggest movie ever in the world. What's going on? It's in theaters now. It's bringing dinosaurs back. Thank goodness for this film.
People love dinosaurs.
Absolutely.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. And that's the reason we're here tonight, is that everyone's talking about Jurassic again because of this movie. So we're going to start out. You guys saw a wonderful behind-the-scenes video that Legacy Effects put together about the creation of the Apatosaurus. You also saw some of the reference models and other work. There's Johnny Cherevka. And we're going to start out with the design process, and then we'll get into some of the characters that weren't realized as puppets, and then conclude with the Apatosaurus. So, John, why don't we start out with you? Let's talk about the design process.
We can talk about, design. That was the first thing that kind of came up, was that Frank Marshall, who'd been producer all the way through, and Pat Crowley gave us a call, and Alan Scott and I went down and had a meeting, and they wanted us to be, involved. They, to carry on that connection to the Stan Winston studio, and to be involved, with design, because that's something that was close to us throughout all these movies, obviously. And they started to come up with a list of these characters of, what they wanted, and there's some fun things, Some of the lead designers that I had involved in this was Ian Joyner,
who was watching at home, if he's still awake.
Still awake. Ian Joyner, Scott Patton, and Bowden Zerba. And Bowden was responsible for the Apatosaurus, the one that you saw in the video. Ian Joyner was with the Pteranodon, which they wanted a new take on that. So that was a fresh design. And the Dimorphodon, that crazy thing with the big head and the small body, devilish looking creature. And then Scott was involved with the Mosasaur. And then also Scott and Ian and a whole team at ILM were responsible for the Indominus Rex. And that Indominus Rex was one of the first things that we had, we started designing and working on. And, I went through a lot of iterations to try to figure out what this hybrid creature was going to be, as far as, making it evil but believable, and then mixing the characteristics of both the T-Rex and the Velociraptor.
Yeah. And also the cuttlefish. And also, remember, he's got a whole bunch of DNA in
That's
him.
right, to help him be invisible, the chromatophore, so he could switch, his coloration. It's an interesting concept for him. It really was.
We should, before we go much further, because we've done this in every segment, go around the horn and let's all introduce ourselves. We'll start at the end here. Your name and what department you were in on the film.
Kenneth Calhoun, foam department.
Greg Smith, digital design and sculpting.
John Rosengrant, Jurassic Park veteran.
Nathan Pritches, mold shop.
Trevor Hensley, key artist.
Stephen Munson, shop photographer.
Chris? Not you yet, Damien.
Chris Grossigel, mold maker and foam patch.
Dude.
Yes.
And Michael Jackson fan.
I'm Damian Fisher, mold shop supervisor for Legacy Effects.
Clay Martinez, good friend of Damian Fisher's in the mold shop.
Ted Haynes, foam fabrication, sewing department, needle and thread.
Jamie Siska, mold department.
Stephen Atkins, mold department.
Laura Palazzolo, mold department.
Jake Roanhouse, I worked in the phone department.
Dangerous Gold, Jurassic Park rookie.
John Cherevka, key artist and painter.
Brian DeManny, mechanical department.
All right, now that you've met everyone, let's continue.
I think the rest of the departments went home.
Yeah, well,
mold department still
mold
out.
department knows how to party. All right, so let's talk about once you guys have those three-dimensional ZBrush designs done.
And I guess we should mention that for sure. Is that is kind of the workflow now. Things have evolved from Crash's killer pencil into 3D models that are being sculpted in ZBrush, because there's a myriad of things that can happen then with that model. You can turn it over to our team for the rapid prototyping, and then you can work right off of that, and then that asset can go to any other departments that needs it, from previs to CG. So we're in the world of all speaking the same language there. And it's a great tool because you can see exactly what you've got on screen and you can render it out realistically. So that has advanced quite a bit, in how we design from day one. Something that Legacy has really gotten on board with, that you can see that we've been doing way back when in the Stan Winston days was, milling this out, which is a type of rapid prototyping. But now with a lot of these maquettes and things, we actually we can grow them on the machines in-house, and same with the teeth and all sorts of things. So because of the way film and everything works now, everything's on such a truncated, shortened time schedule. So in order to figure out how to be able to do excellent work, not make the art suffer, but to still be able to achieve this stuff, we've had to create this new pipeline of how we work.
Greg, you said you were working on ZBrush models for this. So tell us a little bit about your contribution.
For the most part, I'll take a model that's done by one of the key concept artists like Ian Joyner, Scott Patton, and do a little bit of a touch-up for prepping for 3D printing, exactly what John was illustrating. So anything that I see inside of the initial concept art that I feel that won't look proper when it's printed out, I'll go in, resculpt some stuff. If I have to do any type of technical, like dealing with thicknesses, if there's areas like that might not print right, I have to go ahead and make those work. So
basically you fix Scott and Ian's.
I wouldn't say that.
Mess up.
No,
that's what you're saying. So I think it's important because he's saying that we do mention Jason Lopes. No, Greg's not saying that at all. I'm saying that. Jason Lopes, who is not here, also instrumental in that process of making sure that the art is
Well,
printable?
for instance, we did a 5th scale Indominus Rex head and neck, which we printed in-house on the bed there, which sounds like, oh, just printed it, but I can't exactly remember. What was it, 75 hours of printing? The hardest working thing in the shop, working all night long nonstop making this. The Pteranodon maquette was grown that way. The Dimorphodon was grown that way. Dinosaur eggs were done that way.
So you guys are literally growing dinosaurs.
Growing dinosaurs.
At Legacy Effects. Once they're grown, there's obviously a process that goes to the model shop. Do we have any model makers here?
Well, I mean,
model makers don't know how to
Trevor and John actually
do a lot of it too.
Okay, let's talk about the process once you have those prints, getting them ready for paint.
Sure. So usually what happens is once you have the print, it's got kind of a faceted, almost wood grain kind of texture on there, and that needs to kind of go away. And so we have several different techniques for getting rid of it or modifying it so that it can be molded. Another thing is the silicone that we use sometimes like totally bonds to the grown material. So you have to have some kind of barrier between it. So but by priming them or clear coating them with automotive clear coat, or sanding them and going through this whole process, we have to make a kind of a hard copy that can get molded.
It's still art, it's still sculpting, it's working with different tools.
People are under the impression that things come off of a 3D printer ready to go, and it's so not true.
Never.
Not true. There's a lot of hand tooling that
I have
goes
to
in.
say there are some machines we're playing with right now for some small scale pieces that, believe it or not, are coming off in that kind of condition.
Oh, is this that one with the photo, it cures it as coming out of a bath of liquid?
It is.
Oh, that's
there's been many types like that. The thing is, it's not putting any of these technicians and artists out of work, any of this stuff, because it's actually increased the work for. I mean, how busy have you guys been lately?
Exactly. Oh my God, we've been busier than ever.
So it's something that Stan was never afraid of, was to embrace these technologies, and that's something that I came up with working for your dad. Was that is something. Don't be afraid of it. Learn how it can help you, and embrace it. And make it part of your toolkit, and that's what we've done, and I guess that's one of the big differences from the first one to what we're doing now. It's the same process. You're still creating and making dinosaurs. You're just going about it in a different fashion.
Let's talk about once these things are finished, the paint. Johnny, you're very heavy on that. What was it like for you to jump in and be laying down some paint schemes for heroes of this film?
Usually we have a design that's been signed off by, John and the director or whatnot, and then from that's like kind of our Bible. We base all of our colors and how we lay our colors down off of that concept. So each character is different. It reads different. Then at that point we'll introduce real animal factors to it, and then environmental elements as well. So it's got some atmospheric weathering and whatever, it might have dirt in the cracks or a certain look to it, like the Apatosaurus had like a hippopotamus rhinoceros look. So those are all things that we take into consideration when we're.
Well, I think it's important for everyone to know as well that you guys laid down the color schemes for the lead Raptors, for a whole bunch of characters that were used as the reference for the digital dinosaurs.
We tuned up some Raptor heads that were full size that went to Hawaii, and we made various things like those harnesses that went up. There's all kinds of things that we were doing for this Jurassic Park movie in addition to the dinosaurs, but it was neat seeing those big heads, and we can't take credit for those color schemes. The guys up at ILM came up with some really neat looking characters for those, and John, I know you painted one. Trevor, you painted one. Jamie Grove painted.
Jamie Grove, where are you? You're supposed to be here tonight. Trevor, what was your experience?
This Friday?
Getting back to paint. Trev, you've had some experience painting dinosaurs. What was it like having another assignment?
Kind of a cool walk in the park again. It was getting to paint a raptor again, and after doing them so many times, it's always funny because you look at a blank canvas again and you're like, if I've done this before, and then you start working on it and you're like, oh my God, this is hard. I forgot this is kind of tricky. This guy's different. And so it turns into each one has its own personality and its own kind of challenges. And one of the things I love about this job is that you can walk over and say, Johnny, can I get your eyes on this really quick? And we all kind of use each other's input. And it really, that team kind of...
That team, it's through all the departments.
It really is.
The guys in the mold team, everybody, all weigh in. I mean, it really does come from that camaraderie coming together on that first Jurassic Park. And we've worked in that sense ever since. And we do think of it as a big team. Mm-hmm. Everyone's so important to the mix. Everyone doing their job right it's paramount.
Well, that's not, you obviously the artists are very important, but no matter how great their work is, if the mold department doesn't capture it, you're screwed. So, Damian Fisher, let's talk about your assignment on this film and the team you put together.
Well, I had a great team. They're not all here, but most of them.
The best ones are.
The best ones are. Exactly. We had to capture the Apatosaurus. We had to capture the Velociraptor again, probably multiple times again. The Dimorphodon, as well as the
D-Rex.
The D-Rex.
Indominus Rex.
Yeah, Indominus Rex. So when you have to look at each one and take care of it like your baby.
And there's some, obviously a lot of detail in these sculpts, and obviously you approach mold making the same way every way. But is there a different?
I don't look at anything any differently than anything else. Everything has to, whatever comes through me is treated the same way. Whether it's a dinosaur or whatnot. We pay attention to detail and where we need to seam it and split it and everything. And then I have my team do that. I take it from John, and then we go from there. And then we mold it, we split it, we mold it, we cast it, we core it, and then it goes to the foam department.
Well, we're not going to jump to the foam department yet because I want to hear from these mold makers.
All right.
This is your first Jurassic Park film. Knowing you were capturing the artwork for a Jurassic Park movie, how did that feel? Any of you guys who worked on it?
I nominate Jamie Siska.
No.
Jamie!
Laura has the best story out of this.
But you have the best hair.
No.
So, all right, Laura, go ahead.
I had the best hair.
Well, we all contributed, but I mean, it was a long time coming. I always wanted to be a part of one of the Jurassic Parks, however I could be, a part of it. And when I got my chance, it wasn't what I expected it to be, I will say that, and a lot of people know, and they were there, but I was kind of in a situation where I was called upon to climb inside the mech core, and it was a very tiny space.
You were the only one that could fit.
She was the smallest one that could fit in this space.
Lindsay
wasn't working that day.
There were not a lot of people that were small enough to fit inside this thing, and I was recruited as the only person available to do it. And so I went
kind of
inside.
volunteered a little bit.
Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I mean, it was just kind of what it was, and went in and did what I had to do, and was pulled out by my legs. I couldn't really back out of it. So that was him.
You were the savior?
And she passed out.
Dan had the fan in there, keeping me cool and monitoring my vitals and so, we did what we had to do, and we were all a team, and we all kept me alive, and it was great. I'm glad it all went down as well as it did.
You're on a very short list of people who've been inside a dinosaur.
I know. And that's my one kind of fame. I was in a dinosaur at one point in my life, and that's that. So,
Thank you, Laura.
Let's check it all.
All right, Pink Lady, Jamie, come on. What was it like for you to be a part of this?
It was pretty amazing. Watching the films when I was younger, just being a part of a group of people that worked on some amazing things was incredible. So, yeah.
Well, I think part of the box office is thanks to you. So, what about you? What do you think?
It's literally being part of a legacy.
Yeah.
Like being in a position to work on something that kind of you've got a lot of responsibility from a standpoint personally. Like I've got to step up for this because this is my time. And I remember being with Chris Aga and Dan with that side of beef they bring in, molding a side of beef before it unthawed as quick as we could. Just felt like, you know, the rawest, like challengingest thing we could do.
Yeah, it's good to mention the side of beef and also the chunk of Indominus Rex.
We made the
flesh.
Indominus Rex chunk that was very pivotal in the movie. It's like a plot point in the whole movie.
It's almost its own character.
Kind of.
It kind of is.
And the eggs at the very beginning.
And the eggs at the beginning. You see the eggs in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
You know, the mold shop generated those as well as molding them from, you know, the digital assets that we got.
And Clay, what was it like for you?
It was a great experience. I mean, I worked with these guys before. I remember working, first time I worked for your dad, way back when. And it was neat to, you know, I missed out on the earlier Jurassic Parks, unfortunately. I was somewhere else. But this one was great. I mean, it's nice to go, you know, you're working on something other than a superhero.
Yeah.
Thank God. And we're actually
Easy.
Yeah. Don't you slam the superhero.
I will not bite the hand that feeds us. But it was a nice change to work on something that's sort of, you know, it's extinct. You know, it's an extinct creature. It was very, very cool. It gives you a sense of accomplishment.
Well, you guys have really kicked butt with your contributions to the film, and we're going to move past the mold film room and talk about foam and running dinosaur skins. Jake, you want to start out? Talk about what it was like in that foam room running that Apatosaurus.
It was really exciting to be part of Jurassic Park. I still remember being 12 years old, and my older brother took me to the theater to see Jurassic Park 1. And I was at that magical age where I was still young enough to really be immersed in the film, but old enough to really understand all the science that went behind it. So it was amazing. When it was our turn to deal with the creature, we kind of got silent. It was amazing and just felt together as a team.
There you
are. It was
are.
really rewarding. It was really, really rewarding.
Damn. And how many shots did you guys have to get this skin right?
We had one shot to get it right, and I think it looked great on film.
Absolutely, one shot.
One shot.
Don't even talk to me.
It's a little stressful, you know. Latex is a material that, when we run the skins, you need to have an environment that's cool, and it needs to be. We gotta control the humidity.
We had one shot to mold it, Jake.
Yeah.
We knocked it out of the park.
Now I think you just film it in one shot.
It feels like we're officially in Apatosaurus territory now, guys.
Yep.
Let's talk about John. You're probably the best one to attack this. What sort of behaviors were they looking for? What was pitched to you guys?
Well, first of all, I have a big shout out to the director, Colin, because he really wanted this thing to be in there, and he wanted an animatronic piece to be in there. And that scene felt like a really natural one to use it for, because you had the two actors interacting with it, and it's a sad scene, and it also sets up, to help you hate the Indominus Rex. Mm-hmm. It's a villain. It's just murdering these things for sport. So it was important for us to try to convey, that sad situation. And for us to, our direction was, we needed to know some of the specifics of, how are you going to shoot it, what side it needs to be on, because it needed to be tailored for kind of a quick in and out in the middle of nowhere situation. So we didn't want to overbuild this thing, but we wanted it to do everything it needed to do to convey the emotions. And the intent was from the get-go that it would be digitally extended, because these things are over 70 feet long. And it was to work in a field in Kauai beautiful location and place, but Trevor was there with me. We got there at 3 o'clock in the morning. We had to get it loaded out of this ranch that it was stayed in, truck it back into the set, try to have it all set and ready to go before the sun comes up, which we did accomplish, but in the dark, trust me, the thing was still pretty big and unwieldy moving it in. But, it comes back to designing it for the shot and figuring out what it needed to do. It didn't have to work in 20 other shots. It didn't have to do all these things. So it was specifically designed to hopefully bring a tear to your eye.
Well, I, for one, thought that was one of the most effective scenes in the film. If you agree, type in the comments. Hitting our emotions is hugely important, and that isn't possible if the thing doesn't move. So let's talk to the soul. Are you the only mechanic in the house from Jurassic World? You're going to speak for everyone, Brian.
I did not do it all.
But this was a cable-controlled puppet, right?
Pretty much, yes, it was.
Let's talk to Brian.
Well, Brian, you first give
Rich Hogan.
shout out to Rich and Colin.
Rich Hogan and Colin were the main mechanics for it. I assisted them in making parts and just helped putting it together. Hoagie designed everything for the neck and all that. Con did the nostrils, eyes, the jaw. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, Rich Hogan is a great guy, knows how to design things. John told him what he wanted, and Rich delivered it. The thing lifted up from the ground up. We could reach almost 3 feet to the top, which for that kind of mechanism, for the short distance that they had, it was a great mechanical thing that Hoagie did. I was just a assistant.
If I could jump in, we all sort of studied the team that was going to end up puppeteering this, but the mechanical team too. We studied some footage of a really heartbreaking thing with a dying baby elephant to try to witness something firsthand to help guide us on what it needed to do, because the filmmakers, they left that in our hands, which was great as far as what details it was going to do. I mean, Colin wanted his marching orders, make it as realistic as possible. So then that's the research we did to try to figure it out, and then the mechanics, they did come together beautifully. I mean, Ted is here too. Part of that is the fabrication, and it's everybody's role. It's just figuring out making the core the right thickness, making the foam the right densities. Ted and Marilyn building that inner structure. Taking a page out of things that we've done through the years, but it was also on a very truncated schedule. This whole team whipped this thing together in 3 months.
3 months, start to finish, on the Apatosaurus.
Pretty much 3 months.
It comes down to a lot of the guys that, look, John and myself, Trevor, many of the guys around here puppeteered on many movies. And it's all about what the director wants and the director talks to, and John could adhere to this. It's the movement that all the puppeteers put into it, then make it that point with the actors acting with it, and it makes it surreal to, hey, it's a real thing that's happening right here and now, and it makes it live.
That's right. That was one of the grips when we were doing this the first take. He's a big Hawaiian guy, and there was a big screen, and after we were done, he came over and he goes, I had to put a dog down one time, and he goes, I got that same weird feeling. And we kept getting these compliments from just people we didn't need on the crew, just everybody would come over and they'd want to see it and they'd talk about it. And I mean, even the actors, even Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, they were like, this is kind of sad.
It was a sad, but it was a great experience because it was a very emotional scene, and so it was fun to be successful in bringing it to the screen in that way.
Ted Haynes, Marilyn's not here, so you're going to have to talk a little bit about the under structure of that thing in terms of the fabrication.
The way we approached it, we had all the mechanics inside, so we started by foam carving a neck. solid foam.
There it is.
And we drilled out a bunch of little holes just to make it move a little bit better. And it had a hog out the whole inside, you can see right there in the video, just to make the mechs fit in there. So the foam fabrication that I had to do was just enough, hold the skin out the right way, and hopefully that it would look like muscle. And it's a middle step between the skin and the mechanics and making everything work together. It was kind of a simple way of doing it, but effective, I think.
It was, because we didn't want to overbuild this thing, because it needed to be transportable by hand. There's no cranes out there in the middle of this field.
We walked it out there.
Walked it out there. And it just was being smart, knowing what it needed to do. There was a point in time, I mean, you can talk about the great paint job and all of the execution that went into this. And I saw online somewhere someone had a question about the eyes and all that, but Colin, the director, wanted those eyes to have a little bit of a human quality to them, and he liked something that happened in one of the many color variations that Bowden did with this bluish tinted eye, and he felt like it made us connect to it. So that's why that is in there, and that's why that became part of it. But once it all came together, we did some rehearsing in the shop, and Ben Barnes, who put this neat behind-the-scenes thing together, also shot this rehearsal. And so we kind of came up with our routine, and this is how we puppeteer on all of the Jurassic, anything that we do. You come up with your own routine of what you think it should do, because then everyone is rehearsed together and there's a building block there. So when you get to set, it's like knowing your lines. If you want a new inflection in the line and you ask for it, you know your line and you can deliver that. So the tool at hand. We didn't want to get there and be fumbling around or anything. We needed to, all right, you want it to breathe, you want it to, open its mouth, cough, whatever. We needed to be prepared for that. But we did this whole routine, and we filmed it, and we sent it off to Colin and the producers, and to, just to let them see, what we had come up with. And I think they were very pleased, and we pretty much did our routine.
Is this the sequence you sent?
It is. This is the sequence. That was a bit of it from there.
I don't think he had some input, but for the most part, we just kind of did our thing.
We did our routine because I think it worked. We, put our thought in it, and there's those things that happen, which we keep saying, when the actor is there and they're touching it, that influences what we're doing, and it also helped them because that thing was still powerful. It wasn't one of the, it wasn't 24,000-pound Spinosaur. But even there was a force to it, and there's a mass to it. And when you're touching it and it rises up slightly unexpectedly, I likened it to, if you're around horses or big animals, and you're in a stall and they move quickly, it's like there's a sense of weight and a feeling that we wanted to capture, and a bit of a danger that even though this thing is dying and it's a peaceful animal, you still wanted to feel, invoke that in them, and I think that helped to do that.
David, do we have any questions? Tons. We got tons. Let's start some Jurassic World questions.
There are many.
Late at night.
Go to bed.
What was the IREX little piece of skin made out of? What were the materials for that? That's the first question.
Silicone.
Well,
someone here probably made that very piece. Yeah.
I think Chris Zaga made that, and that was a silicone piece made out of...
Two different densities. I think the outer hide was done intentionally, a little rougher and tougher.
It was a little rougher, and then the inner was a little softer, so it had more of a fleshy feel to it.
And did you guys create the tracking device, or was that props?
Props.
That was props.
What about the tooth of the Indominus? Was that something you guys made, or was that a prop?
We did many-sized teeth. John, I think you painted all of those guys.
It was a dental acrylic on the outside with the urethane on the inside for those.
Resorting back to our JP3 tricks in the book there.
Excellent. Did you guys have involvement with the design of the Indominus?
Yes, we did. For you who were not paying attention earlier.
Pay attention.
How many designs did it go through?
Well, Scott and Ian did several designs. Scott Patton, Ian Joyner, and then those got batted around at ILM. Then they came back. Courtney and Courtney Coates took one of the ILM ones and then sculpted it in 3D. And then we put a little bit more input into it. Then we did the model of it in the 5th scale, which in that photograph it fools you a little bit. It's not that small, really. It's pretty big
It's
size.
just John is very big.
He's in the foreground. He's in the foreground. And then it kicked back to ILM, and then we actually then sent some of our early ZBrush models that had more of the quill look on it, and I think that got reincorporated. But I know those guys up at ILM, a big team, worked diligently on that, and you know, we were happy to have a hand in that as well.
And there's pictures from the set of some of the cast standing next to figures of dinosaurs like Blue, the Raptors and things. Were those things that you guys made as well?
They were. Those were, we did 3 of the main ones, Blue, and what was the green one? And
brown.
Yeah, it was Blue, and then the green and the brown one. And I know they ended up all having names, but Blue was the only name that actually went all the way through.
Were you involved with the color choices, or did that come from somewhere else?
That actually came from ILM.
Excellent. And then was the plan always just to do the one animatronic, or was it planned for more originally, or how were those decisions made?
There was some talk of some Raptor things early on, but for whatever reason, we ended up, settling in on the Apatosaurus, and that's the one.
A lot of folks online feel like, especially scenes when they were caged in muzzles, that would have been perfect for animatronic work.
Yes, it would have been.
It sure would have been.
We agree.
It's not to hit the same question, but your feeling about the ratio of the practical to CG in this, there's also been some insinuations online or suggestions that Colin Trevorrow really had to fight for the animatronics that were in the film.
I know Colin fought that he wanted it to be there, and he felt like the Apatosaurus was the right choice, and we enjoyed making that. We would have made more. I mean,
without being crazy, sort of snarky about it, but if they had known the movie was going to make $500 million in its opening weekend, you think they would have done more animatronics?
It's hard to say. I think they did a wonderful job. Having not seen a Jurassic movie in years, I think they came back really, really strong with a great movie here. Being absolutely serious.
There were some differences between the T-Rex when it shows up in this film and your original T-Rex. Were you guys involved with the change in the design from the original T-Rex to the T-Rex?
I honestly thought they were pretty close in what they did. I think I read somewhere that the guys were noticing differences between the original Stan Winston model and what some of the CG one was. I have to say, I was the guy that ended up coming up with that paint scheme on that first T-Rex. And when I was going back to Jurassic Park 1, when I saw that ILM test for the first time with that T-Rex walking out, it was shocking to me, all the nuances that they captured from that paint job that Bill Basso and I had done. And I thought they did a hell of a job. And to see it back up there on screen again, to me it sure looked like the Rex from the first movie.
Awesome. A couple of questions about the a question about the trikes. When the people are riding the trikes, were they actually on anything, or was?
I was not there when they shot that. I have to assume they were on something to give them, some.
But you guys didn't make anything specific for the baby trikes?
No, we did not make anything specific for that.
A question. This is for Kenneth about his work on the foam design. This is from your friends at Faith versus Fate Films. They want to know about the work that went into from start to finish on the foam design.
I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, you know what? It can help in the sense that we have, through the years, crafted many different formulas for different circumstances. You know, if you know anything about foam running, there's different volumes of foam, which, you know, the density versus softness, and we sort of have our own animatronic, you know, formula that we like to use. So that was what we were relying on for this. I think Jake and Ken, we went with one consistent foam throughout, did we not?
There was a softer density in the
neck and face.
You guys wanted to get so much movement out of the throat, so much movement out of especially the lips and the muzzle of the dinosaur.
And then I think we went a little tougher on down the neck.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when it comes to designing what you're going to do in the foam, it's driven really by what it's got to achieve mechanically. And this was performance, yeah, is what drives that.
Excellent. That answers that. A couple of last questions for you guys. Given all the advances in fabrication and rapid prototyping and in CNC and all these things, do you think it would be easier or even cheaper to make a full-size animatronic T-Rex with today's technology than it was in 1992 or 1993 when Jurassic Park was originally made?
It would be. It would be cost-wise. You could certainly, you know, do that. I think they just have to weigh out. You know, it's story-driven too. I mean, if what you're asking it to do is, you know, running around and jumping and leaping, and I mean, it's, you know, it's. The CG is going to be your choice, and it comes down to story and what you're trying to present, and I think that helps to dictate what you're going to do shot wise.
Are you guys starting work on a sequel yet?
No, I haven't heard that one yet, but boy, you would think that might be in the pipeline over there.
Anyone who thinks there might be another Jurassic World, raise your hand. Yeah, I'm thinking it's pretty likely.
So going around, if anybody had their option to create their own original species for the next film, what combination would you like to see, or what would be an interesting challenge design for you guys, dinosaur makers, for the next film?
That's a crazy ass question.
That's a good one.
All right, go around really quickly. Dan, what do you want to see mixed up?
I want to see Brian and the T-Rex.
The Manny Rex. The Manny Rex. All right, Johnny.
Something bigger. I don't know.
Bigger.
Go around.
Like Raptor pterodactyls.
I'm saying raptors, yeah.
Raptors and wings.
Not on my list.
Well, what? What's that?
Not on my list.
Oh, got you. There you go. Madam Mimus.
In the Jurassic World, we were introduced to some dinosaurs that lived in the water, so something that would maybe be able to crawl out of the water would be great.
An amphibious dinosaur. Yeah. Well, we don't have time to go around to everyone. We're going to have to stay with those ideas.
I want to see more practical dinosaurs.
Well, I think we all do. So put your hands together online if you'd like. In the next one, even more practical. David, final questions.
Everybody wants it. That's where we are. Let's give away a tooth.
Is it time to give away a tooth?
It sure
I think
is.
We need to, before we do, let's hear from those of you who we've not heard from. Nathan, your first Jurassic World, what was it like to be a part of this family?
Oh, it was amazing. Seeing it as a teenager, or as a young teenager, 13 years old, first one. 15. Never thought I'd be a part of it.
Well, you're part of it forever now. So you're stuck. You're on all the invite lists for all future reunions. What do you think, Ken?
Working on Jurassic World was probably the coolest experience in my life. Jurassic Park is the movie that got me into special makeup effects, and demolding that dinosaur and actually having it like look at me, it was like one of the most beautiful experiences. And then on top of that, getting to seam and patch it, being on a ladder and seeing my heroes, and I'm not trying to like sound weird or anything like that, but seeing John Rosengrant walk by, and there's Jason Matthews, and there's Shane Mahan, and I'm like, I'm here like working on a dinosaur and all my heroes around it, like, I don't know, it just gets me choked up when I think about it. I know it's lame, but
you all wish you were him.
A lot of us were like, I was 11
I was 9.
Stop rubbing it in our faces, you jerks.
I'm sorry, but it's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Roll, John.
I was not 11.
You were in the Raptor. I mean, come on.
And the final person we have not heard from, Steve. You were out. You were walking around that shop, documenting this process. What was that like for you?
It was really amazing. It was beautiful to be able to see it from design to completion and to be able to document all of that and to be part of it and to interact with all the different sort of teams and provide reference and get approvals. It was wonderful. It was really a beautiful experience.
And I think Ben did a good job of cutting together your footage.
He did a great job.
Let's put our hands together for Ben Barnes and Steve. I think we're going to wrap this thing up, guys. It has been a marathon. We were hoping to go 3 hours. We have gone, what, 6 hours?
No one said that it might be 6 hours.
So whose fault is this? First of all, let us put our hands together for the crew from Jurassic World. And there are many more who are not here with us now, and we thank all of you from cyberspace. And I think it's time to call it on this evening. You guys have all been, we're going to give away a tooth. That's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to close this thing out. And I think we should give, now, is there only one person in this room who's been on Jurassic 1 through 4?
There's 2.
2? Get up. You both are going to do this together. All right, Brian, you hold the tooth.
Alan Scott.
Alan, all 4? Get in here. Get in here. Get in here. All right. So here's how this is going to work. We have a list of 400, how many names? 433 names. John Rosengrant, and you're going to like touch that. You're going to be part of this thing. John Rosengrant, you are going to pick a number.
This is a fake.
No, that's right. Shut up. They don't know that. They don't know that.
They're all fake. They're not real dinosaurs, folks.
All right, John. Whenever you're ready, and Alan, you have to be your touch the thing. This is a big moment. Please. John, pick a number between 1 and 433.
421.
Oh!
Andy.
Emily Dickinson!
Yes. It's all
yours. The dead poet Emily Dickinson has won the tooth. It's wonderful you came back to life for this event. That's fantastic. Guys, this has been truly a once in a lifetime.
I'm laughing at him, not you, Emily.
I'm laughing. Emily Dickinson, you are going to get this tooth from us. We'll be following up with the rest of you who have signed up. This stream is going to be available to you to rewatch and rewatch for many years to come. All of us want to thank you and thank all of you who are here. And also a huge thanks to the Stan Winston School crew who helped put this on. There's a whole bunch of us here. We got Brian and Ben and Eric and John and Dave and Yukako and everybody. And we want to thank you guys. This has been truly an insane team effort to make it happen in time. We hope you've enjoyed learning more about the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park. And that's it. We're done. All right? Good night, everybody.